Hi guys, welcome to your second screencast on Unit 4, the Sports Performer in Action, and we're still focusing on short-term effects of exercise. However, this screencast we're going to look at the cardiorespiratory system, and the short-term effects of exercise on the cardiorespiratory system. So these are the points we need to be looking at and we're going on about in more detail to come through screencast. So if you've got your assignment template up, if you're going to make sufficient notes during each PowerPoint slide, that would be appreciated. So first of all, we're going to go on to increased heart rate and blood flow. Before that, just quickly introduce you to the cardiorespiratory system. We should know this from Unit 7, Anatomy and Physiology. It is made up of the cardiovascular system and the respiratory system together. So you'll often use this term when explaining how the body transports blood, provides oxygen to the working muscles and removes waste product. So first of all, increase in heart rate during exercise. If you can see here, before exercise we actually get an increase in heart rate. So let's say this is 60 beats per minute, heart rate beats per minute, this is 60. Before we actually start exercise we get an increase in that heart rate. If you remember back to Unit 7, this is called an anticipatory rise. Now, we get this due to the release of adrenaline. So a heart rate experiences an anticipatory rise before exercise. This is due to the adrenal glands releasing adrenaline into the bloodstream. This stimulates the heart to speed up prior to exercise. Now, during exercise, the heart has to work hard. So it has to work hard to supply enough blood, i.e. oxygen nutrients, to meet the demands of the exercise, i.e. delivering oxygen to the working muscles. Also needs to work hard so that it can remove this waste product that is produced, i.e. carbon dioxide. So what happens during short-term effects of exercise in the cardiorespiratory system? We get an increase in heart rate as well as an increase in blood flow as well, because the heart is pumping out more blood per beat, which is stroke volume, as we should be aware. So increased breathing rate. Don't let all the pictures and everything distract you. All we need to know is breathing rate increases so that more oxygen can be delivered to the working muscles and waste product can be removed. So by breathing rate, it's how often we breathe per minute. So breathing rate is the amount of times you breathe per minute, usually 14 at rest. Now that goes up during exercise, doesn't it? So we're breathing more. Now this is achieved by extra muscles helping to breathe in and out. The muscles that help us breathe in more air are the sternocleidomastoid, which is here, lifts up the rib cage, and the pectoralis minor. As you can see, it's attached to the rib cage. This also lifts up the rib cage. The muscles that help us breathe more carbon dioxide out are the rectus abdominis here and the internal intercostal muscles. So that is increased breathing rate. So i.e. how often we breathe. Now these muscles here actually are going to help with tidal volume that we're going to go on to speak about later on. So sweat production and skin reddening. Now once again, this should all be familiar to you in terms of we covered it in Unit 7. So when we exercise, a short-term effect is we get an increase in body temperature, and this is because of increased heat, which is caused by metabolic activity, which we discussed in the musculoskeletal system. So what happens when we heat up? We sweat to try and cool ourselves down. So when sweat reaches the surface of the skin, it changes from liquid to a vapor and evaporates from our skin, which in turn cools us down. We also get vasodilation of the arterioles. So that is the widening of the arteries. This brings the blood closer to the surface of the skin, allowing heat to radiate from the body, cooling us down and turning us red as well. So that's about sweat production and skin reddening. So, redistribution of blood flow. We also looked at this during Unit 7 as well. All we need to know is that during exercise, more blood goes to our muscles and less goes to our vital organs. So during exercise, the arterioles around the working muscles vasodilate, so they widen. This allows more oxygen-rich blood to go to the working muscles. Whilst the arterioles around the vital organs, liver and kidneys, etc., they vasoconstrict, they narrow, which reduces the blood flow to the organs because they do not need the oxygen at that moment in time. Therefore, most of the blood, therefore oxygen, is going to our working muscles because the muscles need it. The organs don't need it. We don't need to digest food whilst we're exercising. So at rest, Distribution of blood flow to the muscle is really low. We only get 20% of blood going to the muscle during rest because we don't need it. We're sitting down, we don't need the oxygen to our working muscles. 80% of the blood flow goes to our vital organs. However, during exercise, this changes, i.e. redistribution of blood flow. We get 80% to the muscle and 20% to the vital organs, and this here is just showing it. So during exercise, the muscles, arterioles vasodilate, increase blood flow to the area. Organs, vasoconstriction of the arterioles, decrease blood flow to the area. So that is redistribution of blood flow. Now, lactic acid in the blood during exercise, again, a short-term effect. Now try and think of a 400-meter sprint that you try and compete really quickly. Once you've done that, especially if you've done it a number of times, little rest periods in between, you're likely going to get a burning sensation. Now this is caused by the buildup of lactic acid, okay? So, lactic acid is a natural byproduct of exercise that is produced when carbohydrates are broken down to release energy. So you remember back to the musculoskeletal short-term responses, we've got an increase in metabolic activity, which is breaking down carbohydrates into energy. Because we have this increase of metabolic activity, we're actually going to get lactic acid formed because it is a byproduct of that process. The burning sensation you feel in your muscles after anaerobic exercise is caused by a buildup of lactic acid. Anaerobic means exercising without oxygen. Whilst exercising without using oxygen as a fuel source, your body will use carbohydrates. Carbohydrates cause lactic acid to be produced, and it's a protective mechanism. That's why it's painful, because your body wants you to stop. This causes your body to reduce your performance by slowing you down. This allows you to recover and rebuild your oxygen stores. So that is lactic acid in the blood. Okay. Remember, try and get down all the information that I'm saying, not only what is on the PowerPoint. This screencast, sorry. Okay, ways to remove lactic acid. Do a nice simple cool down. This keeps blood vessels dilated. Nice and slow jog. Active recovery means that oxygen is going to the working muscles and we're able to remove the waste product. And then also a sports massage would help as well. So, cardiac output. Before we go on about cardiac output, remember, heart rate is the number of times the heart beats per minute, and stroke volume is the amount of blood that leaves the left ventricle per beat. The reason why I want you to know that is because cardiac output is the amount of blood pumped out the heart per minute, and it is worked out by heart rate times stroke volume. So heart rate times stroke volume equals cardiac output, the amount of blood pumped out of the heart per minute. Now, a short-term response of exercise on cardiac output is it increases. Now, it increases because our heart rate increases, as we've spoken about with regards to the anticipatory rise, and our stroke volume increases, the amount of blood that leaves the heart per beat increases. Therefore, cardiac output is definitely going to increase. During exercise, there can be an increase of up to 8 times resting cardiac output. That is so that the working muscles get more oxygen, which means that we can work for longer periods of time at higher intensities. Now, blood pressure. So blood pressure equals cardiac output, so heart rate times stroke volume, i.e. the amount of blood that leaves the heart per minute, and resistance to blood flow within the blood vessels. Therefore, as cardiac output increases, so does blood pressure. With exercise, cardiac output increases, so blood pressure is going to increase as well. So blood pressure has 2 readings. You've got systolic pressure, which is when the heart beats. So the pressure in the arteries when the heart beats, so when it goes boom, the pressure when it forces that blood through the vessels is systolic pressure. Diastolic is when the heart is relaxing and filling again. Now, a usual healthy blood pressure is 120 over 80. 120 over 80. This 120 is systolic when the heart beats. So when the heart beats, the pressure within the arteries is around about 120. When the heart is filling with blood, a healthy reading would be 80. So during aerobic exercise, your systolic blood pressure will increase. However, it doesn't actually increase that much. Your diastolic blood pressure will remain unchanged because the heart is filling with blood. Nothing has really changed in that scenario. During high intensity activities such as weightlifting, both systolic and diastolic blood pressure will increase. So And the reason it does it during weight training is because when you get kind of like a pump on your arms, that presses against your blood vessels, which just increases the blood pressure within the arteries. Finally, increased tidal volume. Now, tidal volume is the amount of air inhaled and or exhaled per breath. Now, during exercise, carbon dioxide levels increase in the muscle. We should all know this. The brain tells the muscles responsible for breathing to work harder so you can remove the unwanted carbon dioxide quickly. So tidal volume increases during exercise as more oxygen is needed by the working muscles and more carbon dioxide needs to be removed. So if you look back to breathing rate, what happens is during exercise we get extra muscles involved. These extra muscles help us breathe in deeper, which is tidal volume, the amount of air can breathe in or breathe out per breath. So during exercise, when these extra muscles get involved, it lifts the rib cage up and out more, and we actually breathe in more. Therefore, we get an increase in tidal volume. So they are the short-term effects of exercise on the cardiorespiratory system, and this is the short-term effects should be done now for your assignment template, i.e. the musculoskeletal and cardiorespiratory. After these two, we'll go on to long-term adaptations. Thank you for listening. Bye.